those undergrowth, the undergrowth of that tree, spotted what they thought might be a body. They contacted the police. Immediately, underwater search resources, specialist officers were on the scene. The senior investigating officer was on the scene as well, and they retrieved what was a body, as they confirmed, so about a mile away from here. At that stage, of course, they didn't have, and until now haven't confirmed any identification of that body. But as a matter of course, and because of what's gone on over the last few weeks, they informed Nicola's family and said their thoughts were with the family, but that identification process would have to take place before they could confirm who it was that they retrieved from the river. Now, we will hear from them in the next hour in a briefing, an update on that identification process. And as I say, you would imagine that first and foremost their priority will be the family, and the family will be informed of that update and what information they have gleaned as a result of that. There will be a post-mortem examination. It will be for the coroner to take responsibility after that. But a significant moment, and clearly a lot of interest for those who followed this search in what the police have to say today.
Yeah, Greg, I don't think we've seen anything quite like it in terms of the sheer amount of public interest in this case and the public involvement as well, which I was talking to a criminologist earlier on the programme, just saying how there's been a fine line in the last 3 weeks between the police appealing for public help and that public help turning into hindrance. It's certainly been a very controversial 3 weeks.
It has, and from very early on, I think that the level of interest was so large that a number of people came. I think initially a lot of people came with good intent to help the search, to join the police, to scour these fields and the pathways, to try to find something that might be useful. And of course, the appeals that went out and those posters that are up were for this to stay in the public eye, were for people to help, for anyone with any information, anyone with dash cam or CCTV, anyone who saw anything to come forward. But I think it did take a darker turn that started to concern the police, the police concerned about amateur investigators turning up, breaking into buildings, following their own theories that, as it turned out, the police had already, not surprisingly, investigated themselves. The police putting in place a dispersal order at one point to try to keep those amateur investigators away, because they believed they were doing harm to the investigation, but they were also causing problems for the local community that was playing very much a part in this investigation. I think also some of what was going on online and the social media speculation and the rumour and the accusations we heard last week have been deeply hurtful, was how the police described it to the family. So that has been another aspect of this that, of course, is different from previous missing persons inquiries in years gone by, and I think caused a real concern for the family and the police in terms of hindering, but also making this far more painful for Nicola Bulley's family. So those are elements that have played out, particularly over the last week, and have prompted real police concern. But at the heart of this was a missing person. And I think for those close to Nicola's family, the fear was that it was all a distraction, and people talking about aspects like that in a way were taking away the focus from what they wanted us to be focused on, which was the fact that Nicola was still missing, and they believed someone out there had some information, something could come forward to help them end that search. And of course, we don't know what the police will say in this briefing in the next hour, but it could well be that search is over and the result that they feared has come to pass.
Yeah, there may well be some answers finally for Nicola Bulley's family, but we may not get any answers about Lancashire Police's conduct, because again, that has been under scrutiny throughout this 3-week case, Greg. Such has been the level of public interest. And we've heard from Downing Street declining to comment on the possibility of an independent external review of Lancashire Police and its handling of this missing persons case. This is from the PM's official spokesperson, who said, "You've heard the concerns of the Prime Minister before. He welcomed the fact there was an internal investigation. That's the first step, to allow that to take place and see what the findings are. We think it's appropriate that this investigation is taking place. We will wait and see what the findings of that are before commenting further on the investigation, giving, of course, that it is still a live case." But those are the sort of questions that are going to linger on after this, Greg.
Yeah, they will, and I think once the formalities of what has happened over the last days are brought to a close, I think those questions will surface again. We heard from the Home Secretary today saying she wanted some answers and wasn't entirely satisfied with what she'd heard so far, but wanted those investigations to be allowed to run their course first of all. Of course, the focus of largely what concerned the Home Secretary and a number of people at the end of last week was that decision by Lancashire Police to reveal, first of all, in a news conference that they, because of what they called vulnerabilities, Nicola Bulley had been treated as a high-risk case at the time she disappeared, or shortly after the moment that she disappeared, and they conducted their search on that basis. They said then they didn't want to go into more detail than that to protect her privacy and the privacy of her family. It was only later when they revealed that she had had issues with alcohol related to the menopause, and the backlash that came as a result of those comments was really what has attracted a lot of that criticism that has followed as a result. So I think that's where some of those bigger questions will need to be answered. Lancashire Police themselves referred themselves to the IOPC, the police conduct body, the watchdog. That was about a contact they had with Nicola Bulley about 17 days before she disappeared, and concerns about her welfare that led police and health professionals to go to her home and speak to the family then. That is a routine, of course, a matter of course. But those questions do remain, as well as those questions about the search, as I mentioned, that will undoubtedly come in the next few days. And the police themselves are aware that there needs to be a discussion, and that they say that throughout this investigation, they were constantly reviewing what had gone on, seeking outside expertise to see if other things could be done to make this search better, to make this investigation better.
Greg, thank you. Greg Milam there. We do await that police press conference. It is going to happen at 5:30 this evening, so in just under an hour. You can see it live here on Sky News. Well, while we wait for that, let's speak to Hamish Brown, former Metropolitan Police Detective Inspector. Hamish, thank you so much for taking the time to come on this afternoon. Hopefully there will be some answers for Nicola Bulley's family at 5:30 this evening. Your thoughts on what we could hear at this press conference?
Well, good afternoon to you, Sarah. The situation is that where we've reached at the moment is that the identification of the person found is of crucial importance, and the police can't go any further forward with this until they know who the person is. And it is for the police to present to the coroner, if they are satisfied on balance probabilities, that is the person. Now, without going into details, normally there'll be a visual identification. Sometimes that's not achievable, sometimes that's just not desirable. So you'll look for other options, and that's the path I suspect the police will be going down. Now, there are things like clothing, jewellery, that sort of thing, maybe their personal possessions on this person. And indeed, the police might have gone forward and asked the family privately any marks, scars, or identifying marks on her. Failure of that, there's always fingerprints. That's at the house. Personal things Nicola would have touched, such as vanity case, makeup, that sort of thing. And if a number of identical prints are found, that can be decreed as identification compared to the person that's been found. So they can look their DNA, their hairbrushes, toothbrushes, all those sorts of things. And if they do take DNA, of course, those have to go to a blood relative for the comparisons to be made. Further to that, there's also dental records. So there are quite a few things that the police can go down, and they'll have a checklist. At the moment, the deceased, the person found, will be marked up, believed to be known as, or maybe not known at all. The coroner's department are perfectly entitled to do that and can go forward from there. And they'll have to wait for the result of what's known as a post-mortem examination. No need to go into details. But I've dealt with these before, spoken to next of kin, and I describe it as an examination on someone who's died, and the purpose is to find a cause of death. That's what it's about. So there's a little bit of a way to go yet, but I'm sure the police will have this mapped out.
Yeah, Hamish, it's important to point out, isn't it, to people watching, just why these things take so much time. Because, of course, as soon as a body was found yesterday, people thought there would be a quick conclusion for the family and for those interested in what happened to Nicola Bulley, because this has become a huge national story with people concerned about her welfare. But as you said, the official process has to be gone through to make sure it's all done properly. In terms of what we will see at this press conference, you mentioned they're keeping the family informed. How will they be guided through this process? Because they have been very public about their search for Nicola and their appeal for people to help find her. How will they have been looked after through this process? Because this has been a long 3 weeks for them.
It's been a terrible 3 weeks for them, yes, a long one as well. And with that, and any similar case, the police will appoint specially trained police officers who are experts in their field at this, called FLOs, Family Liaison Officers, and that is their sole purpose, to liaise with the family, keep them up to date with developments, and also pass on any concerns, any thoughts, any evidence, and they are that absolutely important, vital part of an investigation, and really just to let the family know what's going there, and always having the same person so they're at an end of a phone and can be called. The officers will tell them, or they will agree a proper time scale when someone can be called, not necessarily at 2 a.m, but there might be a schedule of times they can call. So the family will be aware of that, and the FLOs will do their job. Not the easiest job in the world to do, I can tell you, but one which is important, and hopefully will give the family some confidence, if nothing else.
Yeah, nothing about this has been easy, has it, Hamish? As you said, a troubled and difficult 3 weeks for that family, a long 3 weeks for them and for the police as well, because from the start, the police were convinced that Nicola Bulley had fallen into that river. They came in for criticism, but they stuck to that. But the question that will be asked by the wider public is, why did it take 3 weeks to find her? However, the police did warn the public that this was complicated.
Yes, indeed. And you're dealing with tides, you're dealing with all sorts of things. And again, without going into details, when there is a tide, it can take whatever's put into the river or in the river away, and then it can be returned. And that can cause some sort of problems, in addition to the weather changing as well. So a number of things to be taken into account. I know the police were, people came along with sonar and made it clear, in my interpretation anyway, that Nicola wasn't in that part of the river they were asked to search. And when she was found in rushes, the comment, again, as I understand it, I don't wish to do this further a disservice, is that, the sonar doesn't look through rushes. Well, in my view, if she's in the rushes, she's still in the river. So I just wonder how much that helped. I'm sure that they'll have something to say on that. I can't speak for them, or indeed I can't speak for the police for that matter. So you're right, the police, they had this idea at the beginning. They said they were going to keep an open mind. And indeed, if this is Nicola, in fact, they've been vindicated, really, because they were spot on what was going on. And the difficulty is with misinformation. There might be an inference, perhaps someone had said it, that a third party was involved. Well, you know, this is just causing enormous distress to the family and the lovely people up in Lancashire who, that their lives have been changed, their environment's been changed. The police have had to take dispersal orders out to get rid of people. It's been a wretched time for them as well. My sympathies, of course, not only to the family, but my support for the public as well. So yeah, the police have had a lot on their hands. On a personal point, I didn't welcome some retired police officers just taking snipes from the touchline, really, as if it was better than their day. I don't think it was, by the way. So Lancashire police are at the sharp end. They have to deal with different situations, make decisions, not always popular. So for my part, in fact, I wrote to them last Friday just to say, don't be put up with all this nonsense. You keep your heads up and carry on. And I think, I hope they did, but I got an acknowledgement. So I hope they appreciated me writing in saying just that.
OK, Hamish Brown, former Detective Inspector for the Metropolitan Police. Thank you for your time here on Sky News this afternoon. Lancashire Police will be giving a news conference at 5:30 this evening with regard to the Nicola Bulley missing person investigation. They'll be providing an update. Let's speak now to Martin Underhill, former Police and Crime Commissioner for Dorset and former Detective Chief Inspector at Sussex Police. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As we await that update from police at 5:30, your thoughts as to the development over the weekend of this body being found, the formal identification process taking place, and what we hope will be some kind of conclusion for Nicola Bulley's family today.
Hi, Sarah Jane. Yes, and thank you for inviting me on the programme, and obviously our thoughts are with the family. My thoughts before the press conference is presumably two things will come out at 5:30. One is a post-mortem result. It's more than feasible within 24 hours to hold a post-mortem, which could answer a lot of issues. And secondly, identification of Nicola. We all think it is Nicola, but it may not be. So they're the two things I'm expecting to come out of the press conference. It's interesting hearing Hamish's Campbell's because I have been Hamish's comments because I have been one of the people quite vocal about Lancashire Police. But to answer Hamish's point, I think we've got to think outside the box. We've got to think bigger than Nicola. The issue we've got with this inquiry is that policing UK has now inherited some really, really difficult, wicked issues because of this case. For example, TikTok detectives policing walking away for 6 out of 7 lines of inquiry without really justifying why. Releasing people's health issues, which has dented policing confidence nationally enormously. So there are lots of issues here that are not going to go away, even when we identify, I'm sure we will identify, sadly, Nicola at 5:30. And so I'm commenting, if you like, for Policing UK, and I'm sorry it's Lancashire Police in the firing line, but there are more than enough issues here that we need to resolve. And the Home Secretary talked today about 2 inquiries and let those inquiries finish. Well, they're not going to deliver. The IOPC inquiry is purely talking about the contact with the family on the 10th of January. And then the internal police review is not going to go far enough for any of us because it's almost marking your own homework. I keep calling for an external police review. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner has offered the resources of the Met. You've got Greater Manchester Police, a hugely experienced force around the corner from Lancashire. And we have to answer all of these issues. Why were the lines of inquiry shut down? Why wasn't the scene secured? Why was the media strategy so shambolic? Why did we release Nicola's health issues? And why did we end up with TikTok detectives? I say that happened because Lancashire Police didn't keep the ground of the information report and let other people in there because they didn't do press releases. So, yeah, and that's even without discussing the fact that Nicola was sadly found in the river, a river that was searched several times by police and a private search company, which in itself starts to dent police confidence by the public. So there's a lot going on here. And whilst I accept Hamish's point, somebody has to be holding the head above the parapet saying we need to learn from this, because otherwise the next high-profile missing person inquiry will inherit all of these problems, and we have to learn from them.
Martin, you highlight all those issues there. How, in your opinion, then, did Lancashire Police get it so wrong? Because this won't have been the first missing person case that they've dealt with.
No, it's not. And actually, I'm not anti-Lancashire Police. I lecture in criminology, and I lecture a lot to my students about the Morecambe Bay Cocklepiggers, which was an outstanding inquiry carried out by Lancashire Police, a worldwide inquiry that attracted worldwide attention. So this is a force that's more than capable of dealing with high-profile cases. I don't know why they got it wrong. And actually, to pick up the point the Home Secretary said this morning, actually, we need to wait to see what the external police review finds. It may be some of the points that I've raised are justified. Picking up Hamish's point, they did get it right. She was found in the river. Would have been nice if we found her before, but there may be a really good reason why she wasn't found for 3 weeks. Rivers are really tricky places to search. You know, you get tree roots which snag on bodies. You get really thick mud, 4 or 5 feet of mud in which bodies can get sucked into. So depressing to talk about, but actually finding bodies in rivers is really difficult. But I won't be satisfied until there's an external review, because Policing UK is inheriting all of these issues, not just Lancashire Police.
Martin, really good to talk to you this afternoon. Martin Underhill, former police officer who served as the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Let's go to our Chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, who is standing by for this news conference that's happening at 5:30 this evening. He's at St Michael's on Wire. Greg, just hearing there from two former police officers there about the handling of the case. And you get a sense that those questions are not going to be answered in this press conference this evening. This is going to be about the facts of what has happened and, importantly, what has happened to Nicola Bulley.
Yeah, and the police are saying this is a briefing. They're saying there won't be the opportunity for questions to Assistant Chief Constable Peter Lawson. So one would imagine it is that update that we thought would come as a result of that discovery yesterday, about a mile up the river from here, that discovery of a body by some members of the public, or what they thought was a body, and the police retrieving what indeed was. And they said at the time yesterday morning that formal identification process would begin, and that has been taking place. And what we expect in the next half an hour or so is the result of that process. But as I say, there won't be the opportunity to ask questions of the police. They know those questions are coming, of course. Last week, and the discussion about whether they should have released personal information, Nicola Bulley's personal information, which was criticised widely all the way up to the Prime Minister level. They know that discussion is ongoing. There is an investigation, of course, into their own contact with Nicola Bulley back on January the 10th at her home, when they were called to make a welfare check. And there'll be this discussion, as you've just been talking about there, about the search itself and whether more could have been done, whether areas should have been searched that weren't searched, whether it needed to be more thorough. When you look at the resources they had over those 3 weeks that they were searching, the fact they were using underwater drones, divers, sonar equipment, pole cams, dogs, tidal experts. Of course, a private company was brought in as well at the request of the family to assist and search this water. There will be questions about why the discovery wasn't made sooner. Now, they said all along that it was a complex situation, that these rivers are unpredictable. Even experts in diving and, of course, water searches, they have a lot of experience of them, so that it wasn't necessarily the case that someone would be found quickly. And it was always the working hypothesis, as they described it, of the police, that Nicola Bulley, from an area not far from here, went into the water in that spot, in this 10-minute gap that existed in the timeline between when she was seen by witnesses in the area who knew her, and when her phone was found on the bench, a dog found loose, its harness nearby. That was always their working hypothesis. They told us last week they looked into the other possibilities, the possibility that she had left this area voluntarily. They could find no evidence for that. The possibility of third-party involvement, criminal activity that was responsible for her disappearance, and they could find no evidence for that. So that working hypothesis remained the case, that they believed she went into the water, and if this identity is confirmed, then that will have proven to be the case. But those questions about why it's taken so long undoubtedly will persist. But I think all of those questions will take second place tonight to the thoughts for Nicola Bulley's family, her partner Paul and her 2 daughters, who go to the school just a short distance from here. Kids are back at school there today after half term. All of the thoughts, I think, with everyone will be with that family tonight as the police reveal. We expect in the next half an hour the result of that investigation, that identification process into the body that was found in the river about a mile from here yesterday.
Greg, thank you. We're on standby for that police press briefing. It is at 5:30 this evening. You can watch it here on Sky News. It could be the conclusion of the search for missing mother of two, Nicola Bulley, missing now for nearly 3 weeks. A body found by members of the public yesterday. Today, we are awaiting confirmation of that formal identification process to find out who was found in that river. Obviously, thoughts with the family of Nicola Bulley as we wait for that press briefing at 5:30. Stay with us.